Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
Hey, listeners of The Morning Joe with Tom. I appreciate you guys listening. And I just wanted you to know that this is going to be part of our mission here at Breakthrough Strategies Group to highlight some of the folks that have gone through contract cuts and this whole DOGE cutting contracts and positions and things like this. I really want people to kind of get behind that. This is not just about the numbers, it's about the people. And while we understand the financial situation that everyone's going through with trying to get our administration financially sound, we also want to point out the fact that these are some very real jobs that are getting lost. And I want to kind of highlight some of the people that reach out to me on this, highlight their lives and what's going on, and how that you can reach out to them and help with like providing opportunities or jobs. So thank you for listening and have a great day. And we will see you on the inside.
Hey, Sam. Great seeing you again. I apologize for my throat and breathing and coughing. That's going to happen here later, but I just wanted to welcome you aboard and thank you for joining us here on Morning Joe with Tom.
Yeah, of course, Tom. Thanks for having me. I'm excited and really appreciate you reaching out and putting this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for all of our listeners out here, this is a special segment, unlike some of the other previous where I'm normally interviewing entrepreneurs and business people and all for their leadership content. This is the internal workings of folks coming out and finding themselves maybe in the realm of displacement due to DOGE or subject to's that contracts were terminated and all, and really to kind of tell a positive story coming out of all of this. So with that, Sam, I think I would ask you first, if you would give us an introduction of yourself, and then I will ask you to then come back with tell us about what brought you into the line of work that you were doing up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. So my name is Sam Tate. I've been working at the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, for the past 10 years. And then prior to that, I worked at the VA, Veteran Affairs Administration. And I was there for about a year doing some introductory IT project management work. And you and I worked together for how many years was it? The last 3 years? 2 years, yeah. So, I really enjoyed that time that we got to spend together on the project. And, as came to an abrupt end as part of the DOGE cuts that are going on. So looking forward to hopefully opening some new doors here in the future. But to answer your question as to what brought me into what I do, I really look at myself as a project management specialist in the IT space, an IT governance specialist as well. And when I came into the space, like I said, I first worked at the VA for about a year. And I was brand new. I was very, very green. Prior to that, I had been working totally out of the industry for a nonprofit that did high school exchanges with students around the world. So totally new world when I came to the VA, and I quickly learned that I needed to get my PMP certification, project management professional. So I did that within my very first year of working there. And from there, I really just kind of put my head down and tried to learn all the different aspects of project management within the government space, because that's where I was working. and all of the different rules and regulations. And I put that to use when I jumped over to the FCC, where I spent the next 10 years. The FCC itself, when I came on board, was kind of the Wild West for project management. There was no oversight, no governance, no, very little planning. And I worked on a number of different boards, starting from the bottom and working my way really up to the top for our project and program, setting in line some different governance processes that I think made some really big improvements for the FCC as a whole. And I can talk about some of those if you're interested, or happy to take it wherever you'd like.
Yeah, so I think I would ask that you kind of show a compare and contrast of the VA versus the FCC, where you were kind of coming
Yeah.
from operational component from
Mhm.
like the VA to a regulatory component, and ask if that's the reason why you suspect that there was the difference in how project management and things were done.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. So when I was working at the VA, they had their regulation down. They had a system called the Project Management Accountability System, PMAS for short, and that was anything that any project that was going to be funded for over $150,000, which was essentially every project that you're going to do, right, had to go through this system. And I ran their what was called their milestone review process there. So after every 2 sprints, the projects would have to come in and essentially state their status to the board. So you would have the heads of each of the different pillars, so enterprise architecture, security, operations, etc. And you would present your status to the heads of those boards, and they at the end would vote on whether or not they felt you were in line to move forward, or if you needed to stay in the space that you were in and fix some issues, or if they needed to stop your project altogether. And in the time that I worked there, we saved the VA $200 million annually in basically stopping at-risk projects. And the reason, to your point, though, that's more of an operational agency versus a regulatory agency like the FCC. You're affecting people's lives. Not that the FCC isn't either, but there are real outcomes that affect people's lives at the VA. And so I actually got a lot of enjoyment out of that as well, knowing that you're doing work that is improving people's lives. Whereas the FCC, it certainly does affect people's lives as well, but it's more financial and regulatory driven in that sense. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I did some work over at the VA as well. We had to work with the developing of the learning management system and redoing all of their training and things like that, and then demo the system
Mhm.
for all of the folks in the VA. We literally spent like 9 weeks going through that, trying to capture every level of the people that needed that training capability and demoing it for them. So I know that the operational tempo there uh, was definitely there and present every day.
Mhm.
And I remember their version of the OIT having to give my updates of where we're at. Here's where the development is, and
Yeah.
all these different pieces of the puzzle put together and responding to people. I told people, I said, I think I reported more on myself there than anywhere else
Yeah.
I've ever been, because it was like every time I turned around, oh, it's report time, it's this time, it's that time,
Yep. No, it's true.
justifying your life every week.
It's true. And there are obviously pros and cons to that, right? So you're spending a lot of time where you could be doing instead of reporting, but at the same time, it's true. We saved $200 million annually for taxpayer money for
Absolutely.
projects that weren't going to be able to deliver. So.
Absolutely. And this was a a lot of eyeballs on that work. So I understand why a group like yours would be overseeing it with such steadfastness. So no harm, no foul on that one, as far as I'm concerned. It is what it is. But uh, I agree with you that I think that from an operational standpoint to a regulatory standpoint, that maturity level may not be there because the concentration is on the regulatory side, and
Hmm.
the implementation of the systems and all of that helps support that legal component, basically,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I think I would expect the maturity level to be different. So,
Yep.
I
Yep.
appreciate what you've done there. So, um, I know that you were chiefly responsible when we were there for probably one of the most eyeballed projects that was there. Um, how, what was it like for you to work under such intensity?
Yeah. So I think you're referring to Project Rocket. Is that
Hmm.
accurate?
Yep.
Yep. So, and for the listeners out there, Project Rocket was an effort that the FCC had begun prior to me stepping in. I came into the project about halfway through, where they were trying to move some of their outdated on-premises tech up into the cloud. Um, and this was a huge, huge undertaking. And it's an undertaking that had been tried and failed a couple of times before at the FCC. So this isn't the first time that the idea had kind of come up. But this is the first time that I think they're going to be successful at it. They are going to drive it and see it through to the end. So that is really great to see. That being said, the project itself, when I came into it, they asked me to come in about midway through because it was seriously at risk. And there was poor planning that went in up front, poor stakeholder communication that really lasted throughout the project until I came on board, where we had lost the trust of the system owners, the trust of the customer, that we were going to be able to do what we said we were going to be able to do without disrupting their day-to-day use of the systems that we were working on. So that was one of the biggest challenges that I saw coming in, excuse me. And one of the immediate things that I sought to fix was just rebuilding that trust with the customer, establishing regular communication channels so they understood what was being done, what the plan was, when it's going to be done. I wanted to show the work that we had already done and been successful at, so we could speak to the fact that, yeah, we know what we're doing and we can do this, and we're going to work with you throughout. So that was the biggest challenge that I saw. But again, this effort touched the entire enterprise. There were systems used by every bureau and office at the FCC, all of the bureaus and offices, they would talk to each other and say, "Hey, I know you guys went first with Project Rocket. How did it go?" And we weren't privy to those conversations. So if it went poorly or somebody had a bad experience, that would get passed on down the line.
Hmm.
And kind of build on itself. So yeah, I really sought to come into the project and build that trust back up.
So what would you say uh, you're stepping through that process uh, was the point that was the most important step that you made that led to the positive outcome? Because I know that there was a very positive outcome out of that because I talked to some of the stakeholders myself. So, and very aware of what you were, doing there and the good work you were doing. So what in your mind was that first step to kind of get their trust back?
Yeah. Great question. I appreciate it. So I really think it was establishing for some of the most important bureaus and offices, establishing a regular cadence of communication so that way they knew exactly what to expect and when we were going to have a general discussion for a broader audience. And we would have smaller, more technical discussions throughout the week. But for the broader audience, they knew on a weekly basis what they could expect from us, and they had the channel to ask questions and get clarity on what was being done, what was expected of them, what steps were we taking to ensure that we are not going to screw up their systems. So that was one. And then the other, and this came a little bit later on in the project because I simply didn't have the authority to do it right away, but we eventually got there, I think, was just truly being open and honest for the first time, I think, with some of these bureaus and offices. When you're not, your customer knows it. Whether or not they're going to tell you, they know when you're, not giving them the God's honest truth, right?
Yeah.
And we weren't.
Transparency means a lot.
Yep, and we weren't. So, and if you weren't able to share information, then that was you had to say that. But I think we struggled before I came on for whatever reason. There were a number of political reasons for it that we don't need to delve into. That
Mhm.
we just were not being honest with a timelines that we said we're going to hit that we knew we were not going to hit. But that affected the customer because they had to plan around these timelines that they were hearing from other bureaus and offices like, hey, they're saying they're going to do one thing and it's really going to take them an extra 4 months, but they expect you to plan 4 months ahead of time. Yeah. So it was just, again, honesty, being upfront, explaining the situation, and regular communication channels so that they felt they could come to me and get truthful answers. Yeah.
Would you mind if I point out a couple of observations that I saw during
Yeah,
that process?
please do.
So I think one of it was that you were able to bring the technical aspects to bear in that conversation that were not really getting established well. I mean, there was a lot of talk of tech and a lot of talk of, but the talk of tech to implementation, that I saw a gap. And I feel
Mhm.
like that you were able to kind of get in there and educate folks and give them, not just be transparent, but give them the assurance, um, like a trusted advisor would, to let them know you understood the pain of that problem and what it was going to actually take to kind of get it done. Maybe not all the every jot and tittle of down to the code, but to the point of you were able to say, here's what we can achieve. And
Yep.
and all. And I, up until you joined, I had not seen that. And
Yeah.
to me, that was a huge, huge gap, you know. And you were actually able to speak truth to power, and people liked you for it.
Sure.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
never easy, right?
No,
It's
it's
never
not.
easy to give bad news and kind of say, yep, here's the sword and I can fall on it, but this is where we have to go.
Exactly right. And that's something that I've taken with me everywhere I've gone. And it's a simple fact. Everybody's heard it a million times, but bad news doesn't get better with age. So
Mhm.
bring it to the people who need to hear it. The sooner, the better. And when you're bringing that information to them, you need to own it. You're not putting it on, you're not blaming somebody else for it. It's just flat out, this is the situation that we're in. Here's my suggestion for how we can improve or work around it. But again, I'm the manager and I'm owning it. This is where we are. So,
Yeah, and I think that's what I am very endeared to you on, is that you owned it. You took responsibility for it. You owned it, and it wasn't even yours to begin with.
yep.
You
Yeah.
inherited the stepchild. It wasn't your baby.
No, it was not.
But yeah, I commend you on that. So, we've talked about what you've done in the past. We've talked about, some of the planning efforts and all. What would you say uh made you most effective in your mind, beyond the transparency, beyond the, taking ownership? Because you had a whole nother set of contractors to have to deal with from different
hmm
levels. So
Yep.
what would you say that would have been for you?
Yeah, there's a few different things there. One is that stepping into Project Rocket specifically, when I came in, it was essentially chaos, and people were walking on eggshells. They were very nervous um, all the time, really, because the project was failing. And one thing that I kind of pride myself on is when it's hitting the fan, I'm able to stay calm. I'm able to think of a clear path forward, and I'm able to convey that to the team. And that helps them kind of calm down as well. And that's one thing that I think is a key for all leaders if they're able to do that. It's find calm in the chaos. So that's one thing. And the other thing too is, I don't have a technical background. I look at myself more as a manager than an IT specialist, right? But what helps me, I think, is that if I'm able to understand it, then anybody else is going to be able to understand it too. And I can communicate that outward. So I work with my team to make sure that I have a good understanding of what it is that we're trying to do, what the challenges are, what we need to overcome. And if I can understand it, then I know I can convey it to whoever I need to in a way that they're going to be able to understand it as well.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of being relational in that perspective, is transferring the Tectonese into a lexicon that the business user could understand, and you conveyed it very well. So
Yeah.
uh,
And that's a trap that
that's
I think
always
a lot
great.
of, yeah, that's a trap that a lot of IT folks fall into, is, just the technical speak that goes over the business user's head. So
Mhm.
it's important to keep that in mind at all times.
Yep, yep, yep. So now we've kind of come full circle to, where do you see yourself going from this point? Now we're at a finished of one project, and you're facing a different future here.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? What do you see
Yep. Yep. So
besides
my
skiing?
plenty of skiing will be fit in, that's for sure. But I think with all of the uncertainty in government, right now I'm looking to move away from that into the private sector, especially due to the fact that my wife also works in government. Um, and clearly it's just very uncertain right now with where that's going to stand. So I would prefer at least one of us be in a little bit more stable of a position. So I'm looking to move towards the private sector, or at least away from federal government. As I said earlier, I did apply for a position with the Colorado State School Board, basically. So that's something that I'm looking at, but also just working for essentially different IT companies running their project management office. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be IT, because I do think that project management, those skills transfer across industry. But my last decade plus really has been in the IT world, so that's where I'm most knowledgeable. But
Mhm.
just looking to do IT project management, or project management governance, across industry.
Okay.
Yeah,
So for all the listeners out there, I can vouch for this guy. He did a great job, and I think he would complement any business with his skills and his skill set. His managerial skills are far above many folks that I've met. So, Sam, I really do appreciate you coming on today.
yeah.
And,
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it as well,
uh,
and thanks for the kind words.
yeah, absolutely. And we're going to put a link on the show notes for the YouTube, so that they can, have a way of getting back with you, maybe LinkedIn or an email or something.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's probably best.
Yep.
Excuse me. But Sam, I really appreciate your time, and I would like to give you the last word before we sign off for today, that you can tell folks out there
All
something.
right. Well, yeah, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. So last word would really be that, well, one, I've enjoyed my time working with you as well, and I vouch for, everything that, you've done over the last 2 years has been incredible. It's been a pleasure to work with you. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there right now that were working in the federal government that are trying to find their next position. A lot of them do really, really great work. So I appreciate everything that you're doing to kind of shine a light on that, Tom. It's important, and truly, truly appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to do so, because uh, people like you and people like others like you, we don't get to share the limelight. We hear
Yeah.
all the news about government folks, but rarely do you hear about contractor so and so just lost half of their contracts.
Yep. Yep.
As we said earlier, up up and down the seaboard over here on the East Coast, this is rampant over here of companies.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, it's a thing, and I just appreciate you being able to come on. You're our first to come in and talk about this. So when we meet again to do your little 1 to 3 minute video, it'll be I'm really excited about it. So you'll have taken us through the whole process. So
Yeah. That sounds great. Looking forward to it.
But you take care and have a wonderful day and enjoy the kids.
All right. Thanks, Tom. You too. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real-life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.